Hi YouTube, this is We All Juggle Knives with another knife review. This is the CRKT Yukanto. I've been told that means Blade of Valor. This was designed by James Williams, a famous instructor of Japanese martial arts. Now the weight on this is a little over 4 ounces, so quite light. I mean, there's a lot of folders that are heavier than that. And if you want to see this alongside all the other James Williams blades, you can check out my collection video. I will include a link to that video. Now the sheath on this is GRN, alright, and the handle is G10. You see the nice texture on the handle provides an excellent grip. The steel is Aus 8 and the blade length is about 4½ inches. And it is extremely pointed. This is one of the most useful of the CRKT James Williams line for most people because it's a bit easier to carry than some of the other blades in the collection. Of course, this has kind of a different purpose. Check out the video link I will include in the text box and you can see this outside in a more impressive lighting. Okay, and yes, I do use this. No, I do not use it on humans, but I've cut things with it. You can see it's a bit marked up, but it's still very sharp. Okay, this folder right here is the Otanashi no Ken. And then the smaller version is whatever that says right there, Shizuka no Ken. The Yukanto is pretty much a fixed blade version of these frame locks, and because it's a fixed blade, the handle is shorter than the largest frame lock because the blade doesn't have to be able to fold into the handle, so it has basically much more, I would say, natural proportion of handle to blade. Okay, how does this sheath work? It's really quite fascinating. What you do is you push the sheath in like so, and then you pull this over this way. Okay, and then you just fiddle around with it for a while until you can hook that hook onto the middle strap. Right, so now this can only move a little bit. It can move a little bit up and a little bit down, but it's basically locked in there. I mean, that is genius. That is very secure. So it's specifically made to put on your molly webbing, you know, on military web gear, right? And then you can just pull that out when you need it. I've heard some people complaining that, well, it's great for molly, but what if you want to put it just on a regular, like a civilian belt or something? You know, you're just going to have to fiddle around with it or improvise. Now, some people don't like the lack of any sort of guard here. Alright, but the designer has addressed that and basically said he didn't want anything that could possibly inhibit the quick deployment of the knife, so nothing that could get snagged on anything. I have 2 pieces of advice regarding using this with no guard. The first would be, remember targeting. Targeting is a basic skill of the use of firearms, empty-handed fighting, and fighting with any type of hand weapon, choosing the right target. You know, the human body has parts that are very soft and parts that are hard. For example, the sternum or the skull, those are fairly hard compared to targets such as the lower abdomen, right, the liver, or the neck. So use common sense when targeting. If you know that there's no guard here, you know that. Okay, so yeah, I mean, if you try to slam this with all your force into a really hard target, you know, whose fault is that if it backfires? It's yours. And the other quick and dirty solution is a lanyard like you see here. Right, so what we end up with is this. You see that? Right, so if I encounter very strong resistance, this cannot sink through my grip, right, without, the lanyard will stop it from going past here, right? So I am not going to cut myself unless the paracord somehow broke. All right, so that's the lanyard trick. The problem with a lanyard like this is that if someone attacks you completely spontaneously with zero warning, they jump out of the bushes completely out of the blue and start attacking you for your life, then you're not going to have time to put the lanyard on your hand. Okay, so yeah, it's not going to help in that situation. But in some situations where you see things coming, if you have time, that lanyard can be very useful. I actually saw a documentary, it was about the Iraq War. One of the first units into Baghdad, they went so far in that they got cut off during the night on a rooftop. This was a platoon of Marines. The entire night they exchanged fire, right, with the enemy. They eventually ran out of ammunition. And they interviewed the commander of this unit afterwards, and he said, we're Marines. When we run out of ammo, we don't surrender. So as soon as we ran out of ammo, we fixed bayonets and we unsheathed our K-bars. Now, luckily for them, the enemy didn't know how to close with and destroy the enemy through fire and maneuver. The enemy just sat back couple 100 meters away and just kept shooting without closing in, so they never had to use their knives, but they were willing to. Yeah, charming little story, but basically in that situation, you would have had time to put the lanyard on. Now, as far as the use of this, it's very vicious, it's very effective. It's basically for piercing or slicing. It's a very effective close combat weapon. Your physical skills and mental skills are going to count a lot more than the equipment, but when given the choice, why wouldn't you also try to choose the most optimized equipment? And that's what this is. I hope you enjoyed seeing it. This has been We All Juggle Knives. I'm out.